Okay, so as you all know, my project was on butterfly fish. I got inspired because the first day I came here, Reagan was telling me about tech diving and what else were you telling me about?
How fun it is.
Yeah.
And it's great for research.
Yeah, exactly. So then I thought about my personal projects throughout the weekend and then a little bit throughout the day. I came here the next day, my first day, and I was like, I actually really want to do that because I want to get into cold water and freshwater research in high altitude lakes, and this was a gateway for that. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to do it, among other things. It's also really cool. That's why I'm so excited that you're doing it because it's awesome. So my project was to look at the biodiversity and abundancy between 20 meters and like 10 meters to 35 meters for butterfly fish. I chose butterfly fish because initially it was supposed to be fish in general, but there were so many fish on the survey and we couldn't fit it all on one slate. That was the main.
But 97 species.
Yeah, 97 species on one slate was not going to cut it. So we stuck to butterfly fish. One of the reasons I chose butterfly fish is also because they're a key indicator for reef health. They really rely on the reefs. And because we don't know a lot about the Mesophotic zone, especially deeper down where unfortunately I can't go yet, but maybe one day. We don't know a lot about the correlations between the health, the fact that it's not as accessed, the difference in lighting, and there's less noise pollution as well. So we have very little indications on how much that affects the species and just the overall health of the ecosystem. There was 3 main issues as to why this is relevant for my project. The first one, you guys all know, there's issues with coral bleaching and disease like the stony tissue loss disease, among other ones that are here. And I'm not going to go through all of the details because a lot of you studied this, so you know, but this is a really big issue because we can see when we're diving, you can clearly see the healthy corals and the healthy reefs versus ones that are completely destroyed or were damaged a long time ago and are still haven't recovered. That has a huge impact on the biodiversity and abundancy, especially for butterfly fish because they rely so much on these habitats. There's also, there was noise. There's also human disturbances. Okay, so these are all photos that I took, except for the anchor damage one. I didn't take that. I took that from the internet. This here was a photo from Nusa Penida. As you can see, there is so many divers and so many snorkelers. These are all snorkelers, but there was hundreds of divers underneath, boats absolutely everywhere. The current is crazy. Like, it's beautiful, but a lot of people say it's an ethical spot to dive or not, but it kind of makes you question when you see that amount of business and also just the incidents that happen to humans. It makes you question these kinds of activities on ethical tourism practices. This was a photo of a fish I found on the beach here in Ahmed. It was a dead unicorn fish. And I've never seen like the little details of it here. I don't know if you guys can see. It has like little spots and stuff. But this is basically just kind of because it's on the coast, coastal development and land runoff. So when things come from the land and go into the water, pollution, I don't know if there's construction going on and those contaminants go into the water, those all can cause a lot of harm, as well as just noise disturbance, construction along the coast. And then when that collapses, it can destroy the ecosystem that's right on the edge of that. Of course, pollution, we see that everywhere, especially here. There's plastic and garbage everywhere we go, and it's really sad. And we see a lot of it like on the reefs. Sometimes it's suffocating pieces of coral. Anchor damage, this is a big one. I don't know if you guys have seen some videos online that have gone viral with like people who drag anchors across the corals and then it just destroys everything. That has a really big impact, especially in more tropical areas where people are just anchoring right on top of reefs and they're not thinking about how that can damage what's underneath. Even though you can't see it, it's not out of sight, out of mind. It is important. And then, of course, bad fishing practices. This is a video of the ghost net that we removed, but I'm sure you guys have seen other nets, fishing wire that's like caught around the reefs. And I still remember we saw so many dead fish in that. It was really sad. But these are all things that can really negatively impact the abundancy and biodiversity of the fish and just ruin the entire ecosystem. So that's for human disturbances. Oh, wait. Oh, there we go. And then there's natural and environmental stressors. I put ocean warming and acidification, as well as upwelling currents are cycles. I'm sure you guys learned those in university. But a lot of them are closed cycles. When there's more input in the cycle than what the output can actually handle, there's no longer a balance, and that can disrupt the entire ecosystem as well. And storm damage. We see this a lot at Gemalook when there's big rainfalls or a lot of currents that bring in a lot of plastic that was either in the ocean or from the land and it got carried down. And then you just see there's trash everywhere. It can also damage corals and just break things. But next time you guys go to Gemalook, like we saw that yesterday. Mm-hmm. No, the day before. Day before, it was pretty bad. It was really sad actually, but yeah. So now I ask you guys, with all of the problems that we were looking at, a lot of it we can see affects shallower areas because we can access those, but we can't access deeper reefs. So we don't know if they're not as accessed, but we don't know how much of an impact that has. But for most tech divers, you can see a drastic difference in the health just between upper and deeper. So my question is, could deeper reefs act as refuges? Any thoughts? Yeah. What's your thought?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's, I guess, the tourism specifically.
Yeah. Kicking coral.
Yeah.
Guys, our bubbles make so much noise underwater. So much noise. Anything else? It is really quiet when you go diving deep. That was crazy. It's so quiet. As soon as you go down deeper and deeper, you don't hear anything. I'd say even at 35 meters, it's more quiet, but you can still hear noise. Mm-hmm. But when we did that 45 and 40 meter dive, it was just so silent. It was nice. So I'm gonna explain the the thought process I had for my project based off of the observations, like I mentioned earlier. I noticed that higher up there was more coral damage, less fish. As adults, I did see a lot of juvenile fish in shallower areas that did not have a lot of corals. And then as soon as we got deeper around the 20, 25 meters, and then of course when I was doing tech dive, I definitely noticed the corals were so much more healthy and there was larger fish and there were species that I hadn't seen before and I was so excited. So then I was asking myself, maybe butterfly fish are more diverse and abundant the deeper you go. So more species that are rare and just a lot more butterfly fish in general, the deeper you go. And my three hypotheses were larger butterfly fish, more common at depth, rare species are more abundant at depth, and more coral cover means more abundancy and biodiversity. I just didn't add that. Do you guys have any predictions for each of these hypotheses? For the first hypothesis, what do you predict?
Come on, guys. I know you got something going on over there.
It's a prediction, guys. You don't have to be right. I made a prediction and I was right and wrong about some of them, so.
But they probably be able to get washed up the conditions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's colder too. Not all fish are meant for colder and less light. There's also usually more pelagic stuff, which means more predators. Maybe. Okay, what about the second hypothesis? Rare species are more abundant at depth.
What do you mean by like rare species?
Species that we don't see as often when we're diving, or species that no, that's really what I mean. Like
Well, even maybe on the IUCN red list,
Yes.
maybe they have they're data deficient or they have just different status.
endangered or
Threatened.
near threatened.
Well, yeah, probably just the conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, maybe they're rare, but they're hiding deep down there. Maybe they're already extinct.
maybe less fish or different reasons too.
Yeah. The third hypothesis, more coral cover means more abundancy. To me, I think this one is, my prediction is for sure. Like, coral cover is such an important part of the habitat of fish for like behavioral reasons, hiding, feeding, mating, and it's their home. Everybody needs to have a home. So yeah, my predictions were butterfly fish do get bigger at depth. Rare species are going to be richer at 25 to 40 meters. I didn't really have the chance to do down to 40 meters, but that's still in my prediction. More health coral cover means more biodiversity and abundance. So the tests we did for that were surveying butterfly fish between 10 meters and 35 meters at 3 different sites, Drop-Off, Sedum, and Gemaluk. But I will say we weren't able to consistently do like the same depth for every single site. So that definitely affects the results. But we were also on a limited time and just the amount of dives we can do in a day. And deco dives take a lot of planning and logistics. So yeah. The methods that we use, water visual senses, that's what you guys were doing yesterday, and that's what you'll be doing for the rest of the time that you're here, which is with the slate. You tally up what you see. And you can see on my slate here, I have all of the species, but I also have different categories of size because I kind of estimated. I had written on the side here a ruler, kind of. So if I wasn't sure, I could guesstimate how big the fish was. It is kind of hard underwater though, because there's that effect with the water, it makes things look bigger than they actually are. And when we were doing the survey over the transit line, my area was 2 by 2 meters as I'm putting on top of them because swim around, if they're not stationary like corals and inverts. So it's a lot harder to survey them, I find, which is also why we were using the diver operated video with the Insta360, just to go back and double check if I double counted something or if I missed something, it makes the data more accurate. And they were both recorded over the same transit line there and back. And yeah, I recorded the amount of fish I saw per species, the approximate size, and any observations, things that were not on my list. So there is a lot more detail to how Reagan and I did this, but the overall idea of how we designed the survey was I got down there with her. She started reeling out the line, and I was holding the camera swimming next to her, checking depth. She was also checking depth. And then once we were on the other side of the line and she reeled out 20 meters, we waited for 5 minutes to allow the fish to come back because we had disturbed them. And then I swam back over the line, and Reagan held the camera and reeled at the same time behind me so that we weren't doing any back and forth. And we were videoing both there and back because I noticed that there was a lot more fish that I was able to see on the way there that we didn't see on the way back because they were probably super shy and we scared them off and there was no way they were coming back. The butterfly fish we surveyed, these ones were the threatened or near threatened on the IUCN Red List or on other more up-to-date researches that I did. But the IUCN Red List for every single one of these butterfly fish was dated back from 2009. It might have been 2006, actually, now that I think of it. But I know it was almost 20 years ago. And in October. And every single one of them said more data is needed to make this accurate for every single one. So that's kind of unfortunate, which is why a lot of the ones that were either in common or were not in threatened or near threatened, I just put in data deficient because in my opinion, 20 years old data is really not great. And I put Shrimply the best for the Eastern Triangle because that's my absolute favorite butterfly fish. Like really and truly, it's so pretty. I love it so much. I always get so excited when I see it. These were the butterfly fish that I classed as data deficient or outdated. Also, this was not based off of the results that I had. This was just based off of the research I had done prior on each of these butterfly fish species. Yeah, because you'll probably notice there's a lot of species here that we do see or ones that we never see and that I've never seen. These ones were common or control species. A lot of these we do see quite often. Not the saddled one or this one. I have never seen this one before. Never. Could also be a seasonal thing.
That's true.
I think it could be seasonal. Yeah. And then these ones I just kept because they're very different. They are also very common, but you see them a lot eating. They have really interesting behavior and they're very abundant. So it was just good data to have along with the other butterfly fish. But they're in like a subfamily of the butterfly fish, all of these, which I think is kind of cool. But yeah. So when we were collecting the data, the variables we measured were abundancy, diversity, the habitat features. For coral cover, I did like either 0 to 25% or more than that, or 50% or more than 50% of the total area was covered in coral. The complexity is mainly just if there was habitat for fishes to go hide from or just lay on top, it was just structural complexity. Visibility, current, the average depth, which was both the depth I recorded before and at the end of the survey, and then I just averaged that, the water temperature, and the approximate body size. Body size, I will say, was a bit challenging to do. We were researching, there was this really interesting method where you hold out this like line that has 2 cameras and that can measure the fish size exactly. I really wish I had that in my mind because that's so accurate. This was not, it was difficult. And then to analyze the data, I used Excel, Jamovi, because Jamovi is the only one I've learned yet. It's kind of like R, but it just can handle less data, I guess. And then I used Canva coding, I put my data into the Canva coding to make the graphs like on this presentation slide. So for the first graph is the effect of structural complexity on butterfly fish abundancy. I added little rocks to this to kind of give an idea of the structural complexity. I don't know if that's clear. But as you can see, when there's low structural complexity, there's also a significantly low amount of abundancy. So that means that there's less fish when there's less structure. Moderate and high structure complexity were really similar, super close, but you can still see with higher structural complexity, there was more fish, more butterfly fish that I was able to count up. Yeah. Any thoughts? No? Okay.
Where's the error bars?
Hmm?
The error bars?
Air bars?
Error bars, like your plus and minus one for standard error?
Oh, I didn't put them on any of these.
Oh,
They're on my Excel.
okay.
But also, the plus and minus was kind of hard because this is like the mean total of fish, but the like we did not do the same amount of dives for each habitat.
Mhm.
So the more or less would have been so inaccurate, which is also why like this whole project just needs more data for it to have significant or significant data to prove anything. But there's still a lot of correlations we can make that show that more research needs to be done, more surveys need to be done for this project to continue. But yeah, there was it was a lot of
It's a really great start.
yeah, it's a start, guys. This is not a final product, it's just a start. The findings is kind of just what I said. It's quite clear that the more complex a structure is in habitat, the more fish there are because they have more space to eat or mate or hide from predators, and there's just a lot more ecosystem accessibility for them in complex structure. This graph, it shows the relationship between reef structural complexity and species richness. This is different from abundancy because it doesn't show how many fish we saw, but how many different species we saw based off of the reef structural complexity. We can also see that there is a correlation, as in the orange here is the most structurally complex reefs or habitats. Pink is moderate and the blue is low. Each bar is a dive that we did. So you can see that the more complex it got for every single dive, the more diversity there was. So for that to have been shown in every single dive is a very clear indicator that there is more biodiversity when there's structural complexity. Yeah, I kind of just said all of that, but it's there if you guys want to read it. Yeah. I know these are not all butterfly fish, but it was just to kind of show different species of anything. This one is for the effect of coral cover on species richness. Again, the coral cover is just the area that had a certain percentage of coral. So 0 to 25% means that the area we surveyed had about 0 to 25% coral cover. Same goes for medium and high coral cover. High coral cover was almost always just a reef because we didn't survey. We also surveyed on like areas that were not just reefs, like at General Luke. It was kind of sandy stuff. Or the left side of drop off. We did survey that one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was not a reef.
Sandy with patches.
Yeah, it was like 1 or 2 humps of reef. That was bad. You can also see that there is a correlation, same as before. The more coral cover there is, the more species richness. So one of the reasons this is really important is because a lot of the butterfly fish rely on the corals to eat specifically, with like algae or plankton or coral polyps. A lot of different fish eat those things. And yeah, that's it. This one shows influence of coral cover on abundancy. This is very clearly like when there was high coral cover, there was so much more fish. That is like such a big difference. And even though we did, I think this could be slightly biased because we did do more dives that had more coral cover. So it might not be as accurate. But for that to be such a big difference, there must be some sort of correlation. We have to do more research to prove that. So yeah, coral cover means more fish, not just more biodiversity, more species. It means more fish, more butterfly fish overall. This graph shows the relationship between depth and abundancy. This one is super interesting because this one was kind of one of the main questions for my project. Is there more fish at depth than higher up? Because the deeper you go, the less effect there is, and the more healthy the corals are. And as we just saw, coral health and abundancy is super important for butterfly fish. But this graph shows that there's not much of a relationship we can do to that between the two, between depth and fish abundancy, because you can see here, the y-axis is the depth. There is a lot more abundancy around 15 to 25 meters than even deeper. We didn't do we only did 2 surveys between 30 and 35 meters. So definitely more research would need to be done deeper. More surveys would need to be done deeper to make a better correlation. But the p-value was 0.3, which is well above 0.05. So that shows that you cannot make any correlation. It's not significant enough. But I think it is interesting that between 15 and 25 meters, there's a lot more fish abundancy. That also shows that the corals are maybe doing better than we thought. The habitats are doing better than we thought at the areas that we were surveying. And that's also where most divers dive. That's where a lot of tourism happens. So that's really an important takeaway from that. But yeah, I would say I was a bit disappointed with this. I was surprised, but it's still really important data. And also, it's kind of difficult to find spots to survey at depth when you're on a time limit, and you have a dive that you plan and you have to dive plan. You plan a dive and you have to dive with plan, and it takes a lot of time to go down there, scope out, and make a plan, and then go back down there and actually do the survey, and making sure that you're finding areas that don't have a lot of coral cover or that do, because a lot of the areas at depth that do have a lot of coral cover were really hard to lay the transect line on, because if it was a wall, we couldn't really do that. Also, if you drop the transect line, that's bye-bye. You're never seeing that again. So I think that definitely affected the results as well, just because we didn't do any really deep surveys that were right on a coral, because there's not that many at that depth that at the 3 sites we were going to. Well, there's just drop off we could have done. So that was a challenge. This one is the relationship between depth and species richness. This one was a lot more significant. The R-square value was 0.20, which means that there was about a 20% correlation you can make to more biodiversity at depth, which is super interesting. That is significant to the research, and the p-value being 0.09 shows that it is a moderate correlation you can make, which is pretty good considering the lack of surveys and data we had for this research. That is a super strong indicator that there is more biodiversity at depth for sure, which is really cool, I think. But there's just fewer fish. Well, that's what we've noted. There's not enough data to say if that's true or not, but yeah. This one shows the relationship between depth and size. As you can see, there was larger fish between like 20 and 25 meters. There was some larger fish around 30 meters, but overall, when we were doing deeper dives, we didn't see as much butterfly fish as we did when we were in the 15 to 25 meter range. But there was still a little bit of a correlation for sure that the deeper you go, the bigger the fish are. And what's cool with butterfly fish is that they look the same when they're babies and when they're adults. So when they're small and bigger, you can definitely like tell the difference between a baby butterfly fish and an adult butterfly fish. So for a juvenile to have the time and the safe area to grow into an adult and see that they completely change the area where they live in is really interesting to see that. Definitely on more reefs, there's more adults, but we did not see that many babies, I would say. Not the little ones.
Deeper, you mean? Or just in general?
Deeper.
Yeah.
Deeper. We didn't really see babies. I think I saw like 1 or 2 black lips, but black lips are everywhere. So it was like, so yeah, this shows that in general, the fish size does increase with depth. Again, we need to do more surveys to show up significant correlations. One of the reasons I included this though was because at Gemaloop, this is what planted the seed in my brain. At Gemaloop, I remember we saw this giant butterfly fish. I don't know if you guys have seen them. They're massive. They're like, how big are they? Maybe like bigger than 30 centimeters.
I'd say like this size.
They're so big. And normally we see butterfly fish, they're like this big or maybe a little bit bigger, and they're so awesome. And that's when I always see them deeper down and then they swim away deeper. So that's where I was thinking there must be a correlation. And then also Reagan mentioned the fish we see at depth are bigger, which is definitely true. We see the snappers are huge compared to when you go higher up.
Yeah,
so
a lot of the other species.
Yeah, a lot of the other species. And I think you could make a clear correlation with that for other species, but I don't know about butterfly fish just because they are reef dwellers, and I don't know how much reef there is at depth compared to higher up.
It definitely depends where we are.
Yeah.
But also what the maximum size that the butterfly fish can grow too.
Yeah. True. Anyways, so there is a correlation, but I would say for this species, it's interesting to see, but it would be more interesting to see other species, ones that are fish and that are not fish, just because at depth there are species that, like in the Mesophotic zone, there's less fish species, right?
I think more based on just what we've seen, but I wouldn't say like a definite yes or no.
Yeah, but I think that would be an interesting study to look at other species size difference. The most common fish species observed. Now this one was really interesting because based off of the research we did with the threatened or near threatened, the common, the data deficient, there was a lot of the ones in the data deficient that we either never saw or we saw consistently, almost on every single dive. So here we can see that the dominant species that we saw in every dive were the pyramid fish, the black lips, the Moorish idols. Oh, I have pyramid twice.
Okay, I was gonna ask about that. That's just an accident.
Yeah, it was an accident. I have pyramid twice. Ignore it. I'll fix that later. But those 3 were super common, and the long nose as well. We saw a lot of those. Those are the ones with like the super long nose. They're yellow. They're really cute. And the pyramid fish, we always see them in massive schools, just hanging around at drop off and at Sedum as well. I think they're awesome, but they're always kind of like right off
they're
kind of
on
just
the outside of the reef,
swimming around or swimming above. But you can see here that compared to the amount of species I actually had on the survey, there was not that many that we saw. You know, overall, I had 30 species on the surveys, and there's clearly not 30 species that we actually saw at all. Yeah, that's kind of what I just said. The most dominant ones were pyramid fish, black lips, Moorish idols, and the long nose. And one thing I would also say is the ones that we didn't see very often, like the saddled, the threadfin, the ornate, the redfin, always they were in a pair, like the 2 of them together, always, or maybe more. But there's always 2 of the less common species hanging around together, and I think that's so cute. But it's also really interesting behavior-wise. So some of these species are generalist feeders, which means that they can eat both like on the reef or in other areas. They kind of just are whatever is available. And then the specialist is really specific to corals. And so based off of the species that we saw that are specialists are the ones that we saw most often on the reef. So you can there was a lot more I kind of ran out of time to do research on the generalist versus specialist, but there was a really interesting result with that difference is we saw a lot more specialists varied in their area, and generalists were everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And I would have thought that they wouldn't be, because some of the generalist species that were on the list were data deficient or near threatened, but we saw them. Like the Eastern Triangle is on the near threatened, but we saw it a lot. And there's a little baby one that lives at drop off in this coral. I think I showed it to you once. There's two actually in there. Oh my God, they're so cute. They're so cute. Please name it for me next time you guys see one. Yeah, behavior, like I was saying, they're always in pairs together. A lot of them are eating or just kind of swimming around. Another thing I didn't put in here, but I will mention is when we get into the water and there's the big rocks, I always see little baby black lips there. Usually only little baby black lips. And I don't see them on the reefs often enough, but I see them there and they're just so cute. But they're kind of just hiding in between the coral or eating. And then I think it's interesting because it gives them like a tiny little area to hide from predators. But yeah, that'd be more research would be done in that as well. But for my research, the key findings overall were that more coral cover means more abundancy and biodiversity, as well as at depth, there was more biodiversity, but there was not more abundancy at depth, which was one of the things we were looking at. So I think that was a really interesting outcome. And the generalists and the corallist species were both, and the specialists in coral were both super present. And that the data that's recorded on the IUCN Red List is really not accurate compared to what I found here. But also, this was a very, we were only surveying 3 dive sites. So that's not a very good comparison, because on IUCN Red List, it's for all of the Indo-Pacific. But also a lot of the descriptions of where they were saying these species were hanging around was not similar as to where I found them. Like some species they're saying hang around 50 to like 300 meters, and I saw them at 20 meters. And then others they were saying were hanging around 25 meters or 20 meters, and they're super common. I never saw them. And I wish I did, but I never did. There's so many species we did not see. But yeah, the main takeaway I would say from this is that coral habitat, the health and the coral cover is super important for the biodiversity as well as the abundancy, but I wouldn't say that depth is the main driver to abundancy and biodiversity for butterfly fish. Based off of this research, I don't think you can make any conclusions on that. I think more surveys would need to be done. Sorry, guys, that was me as a kid. I had an attitude, and I still do. Call to action. These are some pretty general things, obviously, making sure that we're respecting ecotourism and that we're encouraging that. But I think one of the main call to actions is a lot of us know all of the things we need to do to continue protecting the reefs, but education is such an important one. Just last night, we saw people who were eating at the beach and they just left all their plastic. And like, I'm sure if you explain to them why that's bad, maybe they would care. Or if you gave them the chance to actually appreciate the environment or just made them understand how connected they are to it, then they would care. So I, in my opinion, think that education is one of the most important call to actions we can make to actually have an impact. The other ones I wrote down are definitely important as well, but they're things that we here in this room already know about. And you know about education too. But so when I was doing my research, when I was analyzing the data, I was a little bit disappointed, but I thought it was really interesting. So then I realized why it was important, and I wrote a little speech about it. So I'll read it to you guys. Some say we already know that coral gives life, that reefs hold fish, that the ocean depends upon itself. Yet every study, every dive, every fish counted among the coral becomes another voice asking us to listen. The reef is not only home to fish, it belongs to all of us. Whether rich or poor, whether we live by the sea or far from its shores, we are woven into it, into the same fragile balance. What happens beneath the waves will reach us all one way or another. We are not separate from nature, we are part of it. Never stop believing in your work because our earth thanks us for it. Every day we live to appreciate her. So I wrote this mainly because I was disappointed to see that the depth was not a super strong correlation with the fish abundancy. There was for sure with biodiversity, but less with abundancy. And I know that there was a lot of limiting factors to the research that I did, but it's kind of just a reminder that even if you don't get the results that you see, the work you're doing is still really important. And if the results that you were hoping to get are not what they are, that doesn't mean that they're any less significant. So don't lose hope, guys, because I know it can be kind of difficult sometimes. But yeah, key challenges. I mentioned a lot of this throughout my presentation. The time, I did not have enough time to do as many surveys as I would have liked to make the data significant and make any correlations to prove or refute.
Yeah. You just said it fancy.
Okay, well, that's how we say it in French. Okay. The hypotheses, the training and the task loading, that was definitely, I'm still not used to side mount. And even yesterday on our 35-meter dive, I was really narked. And I think I've been narked on every dive I go 30 meters or below. I've been narked. So I'm a little bit slower. And also there was just, between the two of us, we had so much stuff to clip on. And I think it would need to be a third-person job, a three-person job, just to reduce the task loading. And also with my lack of experience in deco diving, that made it a lot more challenging. It was a really good learning experience, and I want to continue to improve that, but that was definitely a limiting factor for me. Statistical limitations, of course, we don't have enough data to actually have anything to prove. The logistics and consistency, again, consistency with the dives that we were doing, consistency with the depth, and the logistics. Often we wanted to do a deco dive, or we were planning to do something, but either we couldn't get the air, or the air was a little bit different. That happened with Godo, and then we had to improvise, which is okay, but things don't always go as planned. It is costly to do. I'm really fortunate that I had the opportunity to do my Tech 45, but it's expensive, and then you also have to pay for the tanks. So, I couldn't do it as a massive project for a really long time because so much money. And then environmental conditions, you guys experienced this all week with the current, shitty visibility. We had to cancel 2 surveys this week because the conditions were so bad. And again, transit placement, especially at depth, it's really hard to put a transit line on a wall, and there is a lot of butterfly fish on the wall, so that was a limiting factor. It's the data we could get. I also mentioned a lot of this throughout my presentation. More research needs to be done. I would say one of the most important things I think that needs to be done is actually mapping the dive sites, just so you can have a 3D visual of what the dive sites look like, and then you can take that and add the data that you see. I think that would be a game changer. in my opinion. But and then for me, I had mentioned at the beginning that I wanted to use this tech dive course to get into high altitude diving because my end goal for me is doing marine biology in Canada, and we mostly have fresh water unless I go out to the West Coast, maybe one day. And so that is one thing I was super excited about. But to get there, I need to keep practicing. So I've already reached out to my dive shop near my house, my university house in Kingston. They do a lot of restoration projects for shipwrecks, and also they're the only eco PADI dive center in Canada. And that's because they do such massive Great Lakes cleanups, because I live right next to the Great Lakes. I don't know if you guys know what those are, but we have 5 of them, I think, and one of them is kind of in the US.
Yeah,
or 2 of them.
I think they're kind of spread between.
Yeah, the Great Lakes are really massive, but they're also really important for our ecosystem. So, and I'm really fortunate to live literally right next to one of the Great Lakes, and I'm on the lake countryside of Canada. So we have just lakes everywhere. So I'm going to keep improving my tech diving, and then eventually, hopefully this fall and this winter, kind of combine that with cold water diving, because I'm not very comfortable in either of them yet. And if you're not practicing diving, you can lose it so quickly, especially tech diving. I don't want to lose all of the training I just did, and this whole project has just made me so excited to go back to school, because I see the value in every single class that I'll be taking. And I actually applied for math and a GIS certificate while I was here, just because I saw how much that can help me to do future projects. You do not want to see my Excel spreadsheet. It is so chaotic. But you know what? My math class next year, my coding class, hopefully they'll teach me some organizational skills, because it's a shit show. No, it's true. It's so bad. It's a nightmare to anyone who likes organization on the computer. Don't look at my computer. Acknowledgements. I just wanted to say thank you. Well, most of the people I'm saying thank you to are not here, but
Shout out.
Shout out to everybody, but especially Reagan. Reagan, like I told you last night, I do look up to you, and I always will. Like, you would look up to yourself if you were a little younger you.
If I was a Téa. Thank you. That means a lot.
Maybe I'll just screenshot this and
we can send it in the chat.
Yeah. Oh, wait, I forgot that G is here. G, I wanted to say thank you to you, because just in the training that I was doing with you, you also really inspired me to keep working and keep coming every day, even though sometimes things were really difficult. You kind of reminded me of why I was here, and you helped me remember every morning that I woke up my purpose that I was here, and you made me excited to come diving every day and to keep learning and to keep pushing through it. And also, you were the first person, I think I told you this already, but you were the first person to call me a scientist. And that really, I'll always remember that little moment. That was the first time someone ever called me that. So thank you.
Yeah, because you are.
I just put little photos, of our field work.
I love this.
Yeah. The mantis shrimp. That was crazy.
Yeah,
I never thought.
That moment.
Yeah. Guys, when we took the ghost net off, it smelled so bad. Like, I was underwater and you could smell the dead fish. It was really sad. It was really gross, and it was really, really sad. And you could see some of them were there was carcasses because they had completely disintegrated.
A ton of dead fish and a ton of live fish.
A ton of live fish, yeah. And this little mantis shrimp that Reagan got out. He climbed back in it, didn't he?
No, I put him down below.
Oh, there was another one.
There was another one.
Yeah. These were. This video here is me failing, I think, for this 3rd time to release my movie. Also, this was on a deco stop, and I did break the 16-meter deco stop. I went shooting, and I don't think I told anyone this, but I remember when G pulled me back down. As I was going up, I felt my ears like it hurt so much, but then it didn't hurt again. This one here was our 45-meter dive. That was really awesome. And then a lot of planning. This is G, is hoping to escape.
Attitude.
Yeah. Yeah, the attitude. And look at her with her 3 tanks. That's Reagan, guys. What a baddie. These were not diving related photos, but I wanted to put them in there because it was fun. G in his element, just on the sunset. But right, that was last night. That was also last night. That was my reaction to Reagan taking a shot.
Oh yeah.
Which I put on replay. You guys haven't met these people yet. That's Floor, and these were some other interns who were here, and Téa and Mare. Loyo in the background. Aw. And Kai. Guys, did you know that Kai is not a bar? He's the sheep. He is. He told me, and he told me they put a hat on the sheep because he wears hats. And I never realized that. I think that's crazy. And then these are some more AI photos I made. G, I gave you the soup because I know how much you love it.
No.
Is that supposed to be Kai on the other side?
Yeah, but I kept asking ChatGPT to remake Kai so it looks like him. And it was weirder and weirder. So this is like the best version I took.
So cute.
I know.
They put the soup on me because I ate that.
See them?
So cute.
And Reagan, that was when you took the
flyer.
Yeah.
That's what I love about
Yeah, because you just said you don't change, but this is your alter ego. Yeah, and these are my sources, guys. Always source.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yay!
That was amazing. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.